I'm looking at 2026, and sometimes I'll take up a text and we go through the text for a long time. Sometimes we just bounce around. We'll always probably bounce around a little bit, but something I want to do this year is I want to really explore some key concepts of this tradition, the kind of things that are holding the whole thing up. None of them are things that we haven't talked about, but I want to really name them and shine a spotlight on them. And in doing so, hopefully kind of establish a little bit more of a shared vocabulary about what we're doing and about what these teachings are really about. And I want to start, there's within Sotoshu, which is the denomination as it exists in Japan, there's a constitution, and which sounds funny, but it's a big organization, so of course. And on the first page of the constitution for Sotoshu, there is a statement of doctrine. Those of you who have met Yoshitani Roshi, who came here a couple times, or who have seen him, he has a little bit of a, he's strict and he's mischievous at the same time. And one of the ways that he likes to embarrass monks is by asking them, whether it's in a public setting or a practice setting, or when everyone's out to dinner, saying, so what's the statement of doctrine? Just, could you recite it back to me? Everybody knows it, right? Everybody memorized the statement of doctrine, and then everybody feels kind of shamed, because even though we're talking about it all the time, we don't necessarily write it down and put it on the wall. So I want to make sure that we've all heard this. Here it is. And of course, I don't have glasses on. It states, abiding by the true dharma, singularly transmitted by the Buddha ancestors, the Sotoshu doctrine is to realize Shikantaza, just sitting, and Sokushinzebutsu, the mind itself is Buddha. So it's one sentence, but there's a lot going on here. First of all, there's a statement that there is a transmission that takes place from the Buddha ancestors that is kind of perfect, and that isn't necessarily happening somewhere else. It is singularly transmitted through the Buddha ancestors. It doesn't say explicitly, though we could infer, it doesn't say explicitly that this has been singularly transmitted through this lineage that we call Soto Zen. It doesn't go quite that far, and I'm grateful for that. Because Buddhism is really big, and there's a lot of beautiful stuff here. And we shouldn't get stuck on the idea that we have some ownership of the one true thing. We do have a particular way of talking about and holding the one true thing. That's what makes this tradition this tradition. But someone else can talk about and hold the one true thing in a different way. Abiding by the true dharma singularly transmitted by the Buddhas and ancestors, the Sotoshu doctrine is to realize, and the term for realize is joto, Shikantaza, which is what the kind of the technical term for zazen, and Sokushinzebutsu, which means that the mind itself is Buddha. If we read this quickly, we get excited about two things: Shikantaza and Sokushinzebutsu, which I'm going to talk about. But I think in many ways, the key word here is realize. Realize doesn't mean that we get it. It doesn't mean we understand it. It doesn't mean that we have some sort of epiphany. When we say the Buddha way is unsurpassable, the awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it, we're using a similar term for embody. Many centers would translate that as to realize it. I vow to realize it. If we look at that, then we need to understand, we can understand. Realize doesn't mean something internal. It means that we meet a truth and then we take it in and it shapes who we are. And we become that thing. If I say the Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. And I'm just supposed to understand that the Buddha way is unsurpassable. Really, who cares? Nothing happened there except a little cognitive shift where I decided what was most important. This is realize in the sense of making something real, and making something real as you. So when the doctrine is to realize Shikantaza and to realize Sokushinzebutsu, these teachings have to come to life through you. Not just as something you see, but as something you do, as something that can be seen through you and through your actions, through the way that you move in the world. That's the doctrine. The rest, to a degree, is conceptual. And I would make the argument that even though they chose these two very important things, they could have chosen two other very important things. Because it's the nature of this tradition, this particular tradition, that anytime we start talking about one of them, we spiral into all the other ones. So if there's something you take away tonight, it's not going to be the definition of Shikantaza. It's not going to be the definition of Sokushinzebutsu. It's this other thing. It's that when we meet a truth, we are affected by that truth. We respond to it. Shikantaza. Shikantaza is just sitting. It's doing nothing else. And I think it's also really important because we see this so much as a practice of Zazen. I think especially in the West, kind of have a fantasy that there's something very pure here. That, there are moments when Togan says that Shikantaza is the highest. Or he says, don't get stuck in the other parts, the rituals, all that. I think we have a natural inclination to read those things and say, this is pure and it's simple. And there's all sorts of stuff I can get rid of if I just do this one thing. I think it's really important in this statement that they said Shikantaza and. And the and could have been other things. But it's a way of saying, this is important, but it's not just this. That's a kind of trap. On one level, just sitting is just sitting. It's really just sitting. And that sounds ridiculous if you keep saying it. Like really, no, it really is just sitting. But it is. You sit down and then you don't do anything other than that. You don't put your mind somewhere. You don't try to build something or break something down. You don't put your laser focus on one thing and exclude other things. And you also don't try to hold all the things. You don't try to become something different from what you are. And you also don't take on some sort of project of radical self-acceptance. You literally just sit still. And your body functions in all the ways that your body functions when it's sitting still. You breathe. And so breathing is part of sitting still. You hold yourself in this posture. And every time something pulls you away from it, you come back. But you don't come back to some profound thing. You don't come back to some magical truth. You come back to, oh, I'm really just sitting. And everything else is my special sauce. Everything else is the distraction. It's the thing that I sprinkle on top of it to make it feel like it has depth, like it has spiritual impact. All the other stuff that I put on top of it is the stuff that helps me make sense of why I would do this. Because otherwise, why would I just sit down and face a wall and literally not do anything else? The mind wrestles with that. And it says, okay, it's that, but in a spiritual way. And then we can bring in whatever that is. But no, we really just sit. And it sounds so simple. It sounds so reductive. I can say, I'm on year, 35. It's still so hard. It's not that it's a skill. It's not. But it's a challenge. Because my mind wants to take me other places. My mind doesn't want to just do anything. And so I come back and I come back and I come back and I come back. And along the way, I might fall into the delusion of, ooh, I'm good at this. Or into the despair of, I will never be good at this. But those are just stories. I'm just sitting still. I'm just not doing anything else. That's Shikantaza. We can spend our whole lives just trying to do this one thing. And if it goes really, really well one day, it doesn't matter. That's the killer. Because tomorrow we're going to do it again. And it'll be just as hard. So we have this thing that is so simple, that is so bare bones, that it's jarring to the mind. And we make that very, very central in this tradition. And this statement of doctrine says, we need to make that real. We need to bring ourselves to that. That and this other thing, Sokushinzebutsu. This is a construction in Chinese. It's soku something ze something. And the soku means it's something like this very whatever it is. So soku blank ze blank. And this can come up in Chinese literature. So this very blank, and then the ze means like it's the actual thing, and then blank. So like this very mind, shin, is nothing other than Buddha. Sokushin Zebutsu. What does that mean? If we understand what that means, then we start to understand a little bit more about what Shikantaza is. Without that part, Shikantaza really is a weird activity. Maybe not once, maybe not 10 times, but a lifetime? That's strange. That's a strange investment. I want to read a little bit about this, about Sokushinzebutsu. So this is a good story. This is a story about Baso, or sometimes called Basho. This was his teaching for a while. A lot of these teachers in the stories in the koans, they had a kind of a thing. They had a thing that they did. There was the teacher who always held up his finger. No matter what question you asked him, he'd hold up his finger, right? And everybody knew about it, right? You go to the next town and you say, "Have you met, so and so?" And they say, "Oh, he's the finger guy." No, I haven't seen it, but I want to see that, right? Like there's something about that, even that you could describe it to somebody, but there's this feeling that if you see it in person, there's going to be more to it than what it sounds like. And so people would go to that temple, they travel and they ask a question, and then he holds up the finger. And some of them probably were like, that wasn't much. But some people say, I think this matters. And then they'd stay there for a while. So people had their thing. For Baso, it was this. People would ask him questions. People would come to him and they say, "Teach me about this." And he would say, "Sokushinzebutsu." This very mind is nothing other than Buddha. That was his invitation to everything. That was his lens. So this story goes, Baso said, Sokushinzebutsu. Daibai studied this for more than 30 years. So he thought it mattered. Dwelling on his mountaintop, hiding his traces in the sounds of the valley and the colors of the mountain, the ancestor Baso finally sent a monk to visit and say to Daibai, Baso's Buddha Dharma is different these days. Okay. Part of what I love about this is we don't know if he's just messing with Daibai or not, because it works either way. But Daibai, being this incredible student, being someone who was so sincere, he found the Sokushinzebutsu guy, he got it for himself, and then he just went off to his mountain. He said, I'm gonna sit with this until I get it, until I realize it. 30 years go by. Baso, all the time knowing Daibai's over there doing this on his own. So he sends a monk, he's check on him. But when you go, I want you to tell him, Baso's mixed it up. It was Sokushinzebutsu. Now it's different. So in the story, Daibai responds, how is it different? And the monk says, now it's Hishin Hibutsu, which means no mind, no Buddha. Daibai said, even if he says no mind, no Buddha, I just follow Sokushinzebutsu. The monk returned and he told Baso. Baso said, that plum is ripe. So again, there's something playful here and we don't really know. Either it's a test or it's something else. if you take in Sokushinzebutsu, if you realize Sokushinzebutsu, that this very mind, I almost pointed to my brain, but I know that's not it, but that this very mind is nothing other than Buddha. The invitation is to take something that we think is kind of low or simple or impure, and to hold it up as kind of perfect. Right? We put it at the top part of the altar. This mind, this same mind that thinks so many stupid things, that feels so many ridiculous things, that has fears and regrets, that gets so lost. Say, this mind is Buddha. In order to realize that, I have to take something and I have to kind of move it up. Now the story is, he says, no, it's not, he doesn't teach that anymore, Baso. He did that for a while, yeah. And then, but now he's changed it, and now he says Hishin Hibutsu, which means no mind, no Buddha. No mind, no Buddha is kind of the same thing in a way, except that now instead of taking something that feels low and moving it up, you're noticing the things that you thought you were holding way up here, that you were making special, and you have to pull them back down. One way or another, things kind of level out. It's talking about everything is sacred versus everything is profane. If we realize either one, the outcome may not be that different. In this second version of the story, where he actually did change it, where Baso did start teaching no mind, no Buddha, then the exchange is a little bit different. Because in that case, the monk who goes to check on Daibai is saying, you got to stop what you're doing, right? Because actually it's changed now. It's not the same thing. And Daibai looks at him and says, no, it's not. Nothing changed. I know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to keep going here. We've talked in the past about koans. We've talked a little bit about huato. Huato is a kind of subset of koan practice, where you have one idea or one question that you ask yourself constantly. Not so that you can take it back to a teacher and have an answer verified, but so that you can never put it down. The most famous one being, what is this? You walk into the supermarket and you think, what is this? You get home from work, you say, what is this? You put a bite of food in your mouth. What is this? Everything is a question. Everything is an opening up into unknowing, into the intimacy of never being quite sure. It's saying nothing is solid. Ask this question until your world changes. A teaching like Sokushinzebutsu is like that. This very mind is nothing other than Buddha. It takes too long to say in English. That's why it's nice. Sokushinzebutsu. You can walk into the supermarket, you can take a bite of that food. Sokushinzebutsu. Whatever I'm bringing to this, whatever I'm experiencing as mind, is more than I think it is. Not only more, but Buddha is Buddha. There is no my Buddha. There is no my version of Buddha. Buddha is Buddha is Buddha. And so it goes back, as I've been saying, I have memories, I have regrets, I have hopes, I have weird ideas and dumb jokes that I tell my kids. And there is something about that very same mind that is not personal. That is not mine in the way that I understand mine. It's big. Not in a way that makes me big and not in a way that makes me small. The way I read this statement of doctrine is essentially we're being handed two practices. And they're the same one, because we say to sit in Zazen is to sit as Buddha. If you understand that, you understand Sokushinzebutsu. If you understand Sokushinzebutsu, oh, now you understand that. Because you're not just sitting then as Buddha, you're driving as Buddha. You're sleeping as Buddha. You're doing everything as Buddha. And so this doctrine is saying, here's one very concrete thing you can do with your body. Do that. Really do that. And when you're doing it, do nothing but that. And then it says, here's why. Because that's what Buddhas do. And when you know that this mind is Buddha, you start to act like it. You step toward that. You step into that. Maybe at times, in a kind of delusional way, like I'll try it on, this is me walking down the street as a Buddha. You probably slow down a little bit. You probably kind of feel kind of important. But you can't do that forever. You can't play that game forever. So it's okay. You can do that. Because eventually that part falls away. That part falls away. And it's really just this. It's just sitting. It's just walking. It's just eating. And Buddha is just Buddha. I said I have a lot of terms that I want to talk about, a lot of concepts. Spoiler alert, they're all kind of the same thing. And so this is not the last time that we will talk about Shikantaza. It's not the last time we'll talk about Sokushinzebutsu, even if we don't name them, because they're always there. They're always there. But that's where I'll stop today.